Hi, I'm Sinta Ebersohn of Get Up and Grow. It's a community where we cultivate resilience in all aspects of life. And one of those aspects that many of us struggle with is separation, divorce, and even blending new families afterwards. With me here to talk about that is love and dating coach Laurie Gerber. Laurie, thank you so much for agreeing to chat with me and welcome.
It is wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Please tell us a bit, give us a bit of background. How did you get to become a love and dating coach of all things?
Yes, I wasn't planning it from childhood, but there were some signs. There were some signs. I've always been interested in personal growth and resilience, to use your word. And so I was running my own business when I was in my 30s. I had two little kids. I had a husband. I had a whole life, uh,
Mhm.
trucking along, but I did not find myself to be happy. So at that point, I hired myself a coach who taught the Handel method, which is the method that I teach.
Mhm.
And I was flabbergasted. I was shocked at how little I had received what I needed to receive in the past for the goals that I actually had. In other words, I had received a lot of good information, a lot of good sort of techniques and tools over the years and all the things I had tried, but I had never really shifted my consciousness, really shifted my mind, my body, my heart. And this particular coaching methodology did that for me. And it has never stopped doing that for me. In the last 20 years, I've been practicing it and now teaching it. So I
Wow.
very quickly discovered I wanted to teach it, not just live it and not just learn it. I wanted to teach it. I became a coach. And because I did so much work on myself and my personal relationships, I became a relationship expert inside of that company. So for the next 15 to 18 years, I worked at Match.com. I worked with Zeus. I worked with JDate. I worked with all kinds of different organizations doing webinars, live events, one-on-one coaching, couples coaching, all different kinds of coaching surrounding all topics, but really focusing on love because I think it's the most important thing,
Mhm.
love and relationships. And I actually began to fall in love with helping people get divorced because that's a very scary transition, and
Yes.
also helping people get back into dating after divorce, which is another very scary transition.
Mm.
So lately, and being in midlife myself, I really enjoy the midlife population. I would say people everywhere from mid 40s to 60s and 70s, which is now midlife, depending on how healthy you are.
Yes.
And so I've just come to really understand, enjoy, have experience with, and find delight in helping that group of humans figure out if they want to leave, why they want to leave, how they're going to leave, and then what they're going to do once they leave. And all things dating and relationships. And then, of course, how to sustain happy, healthy love.
Great. So you've got personal experience and all the work experience, it seems like, for many, many years.
Correct.
So
Correct.
what does a love and dating coach do? Where do you start when somebody comes to you?
Right. And I will say, when someone comes to me, I start with looking at their entire life because you cannot separate your love and relationships out from other things. And you certainly can't separate dating out from how you feel about your body, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your money, how you feel about your family, what your kids are doing and thinking. So I look at the whole person from the very beginning and I say, what's the ideal? I ask and this is what my coach did for me 20 years ago, but I ask my clients, what's the ideal in all areas? We go time, relationship to self, love, money, family,
Mhm.
fun, learning, spirituality, body, health, right? All the areas, career, money, all of it. And then where are you currently? So we have to take stock of the whole life
Mhm.
and why are you where you are? So we get kind
Yes.
of a heart reading of the desire and then a head reading of your explanation and your thinking. Because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line your heart and your head up in a line. I'm going to
Mhm.
get the heart to tell the truth. I'm going to line the head up, and then I'm going to get you into action accountably for what it is that you actually want. That three-step process is that three-step process of alignment is what had that impact on me 20 years ago and never wore off, which I didn't find any other technique to address all
Mhm.
three at the same time. So that's where we start. We start with, who are you? What do you want? What are your dreams? And getting you to be able to articulate that well, and then getting your thinking and your actions into alignment with that. So that goes for if you're in a bad marriage, that goes for if you're struggling with your divorce, that goes for if you just finished your divorce, that goes for if you're just dating unsuccessfully, whatever situation you might find yourself in.
It's an interesting concept to say that you want the head and the heart to align. All my life, I've always instinctively felt that my head and my heart had to agree on something if I had to make a decision. So you're talking about your thoughts and your feelings and your actions. You're getting all of those things to align so that you're congruent.
That's a really nice way to put it. But I would tweak one thing in what you said, which is thoughts actually lead to feelings. So if your
Yes.
thoughts are erroneous, your feelings could really be off.
Mm-hmm.
When I say alignment of heart, head, and body, when I say heart, I mean deepest, truest desires, which I
Okay.
consider to be divinely ordained, God-given, whatever, spiritual, whatever you want to call it. I consider that to be the unique snowflake that each person is.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say, so I really need to know what that is first before I try to align your thinking with it, because I don't want your thinking to then cause your feelings. I want your dreams to cause your thinking.
I see what you mean. Okay. And in that lies the secret. We're starting with the essence of who we are, or who we want to be. Was almost looking as who am I and how is that comparing to who I would like to be? And then there's a process or a journey to get there.
Yes.
Am I getting this right?
You are. You really are. And I like how you put it.
So how do we apply that to dating? Let's say I'm divorced now, I'm ready or eager to get out there, but I'm not sure who I am
Right.
after the divorce, eh?
Right. Exactly. And I find that most people after a divorce have somewhere between 10 and 15 things they still need to get over and sort out and learn and understand before they can really be ready to date like they mean it. And I
That's
wouldn't even
interesting.
suggest rushing into it.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing. It's the first time I've heard somebody actually count the number of things. What sort of things are you talking about?
I've been keeping a running list. Yeah, I've been keeping a running list because hold on, I'm going to put my glasses on so I can actually look at this running list. Because
Are they common things that you find with most people?
yes, I would say again, I have a master list, but which ones are yours on the list sort of depends how much healing work you've done, how much you've looked at yourself, how much, right? So it's different for each person what's still on the list, but some of the most obvious things someone post-divorce need to deal with is to start with, am I resolved about my divorce?
Yes.
Because do I have a good story that I could tell in front of my kids, or I could tell in front of my friends that doesn't paint me as a victim, doesn't paint me as a jerk, but really tells a balanced, honest story. And that goes for, I mean, there are some marriages that are really, really awful and you need to tell the truth. My partner changed. I couldn't deal with the addiction, or I was in an abusive relationship and I learned how, I finally learned to love myself enough to get out. There are some stories that are hard and vulnerable to tell, and really, but you do need to be able to tell them in a balanced, honest, succinct way in your dating process and to yourself, because you have to live with that story every day. So I take people through what I call the love detox. A lot of times, if they're not just like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be out, it was the best thing for both of us, we just grew apart, unless someone comes to me happy about their divorce, we do a divorce detox, which can be anything from just reframing and retelling the story more honestly to cutting off contact, or ridding your home of triggers of that person. So sometimes people are still addicted to the person, and that requires heavier guns, whereas if they just don't have a good and empowering story, we would start there. So that's just one example. I'm happy to go down the list if you're interested.
Okay, now that's great. I don't want you to give away all your secrets, but maybe give us a few examples. But that's a good start.
Yeah.
You talked about removing all the triggers in your house.
Yes.
Would that be things that remind you of this person or your marriage or the way things used to be?
Correct.
Like,
Correct.
what, for example, like your wedding photographs, for example.
Yes. Pictures, mementos, clothing. You know, if you still have children at home or you still have children who are going to be sensitive to that, you have to kind of balance it. But most kids want you to turn out happy. So
Yes.
whatever you need to do to not trigger yourself, the more time you spend triggered, the less dateable you are, bottom line. Right? So if you can remove triggers,
Exactly.
you're going
Yeah.
to become more dateable. And people don't realize that. I mean, the amount that people tolerate, for example, eating things they're allergic to, or, you know, being triggered and just, you know, keeping a happy face on, or surviving it. It's unnecessary how hard we have to work to overcome those things. And an easier way to do it is to limit or cut off or design contact in a very specific way to eliminate the triggers, and to be very closely watching your mind to see where it goes about that person. And then to really be filling your life up with a lot of new things, nourishing things, things that make you feel good about yourself, because you are building a new bunch of neural pathways and you're building a new identity for yourself. So it's helpful to both remove things from your day-to-day life and also add new things to your day-to-day life when you're in that particular transition.
Because that transition, I've heard many people say, is quite difficult, going from being a couple to being single again. And it's complex. It involves a lot of things. And if there are children in the picture, sorry, if you are a parent, there's an added dimension of challenges there.
Yes. Yes.
Sure.
There are positives and negatives, obviously, of going from coupled to single. And obviously, I encourage people to focus on the positives. For example, getting to make all your own choices, not needing to, compromise, not, being forced to figure out what you like and want and need. There are many. I even find, I'm married, but I find that when I'm parenting my child, it's actually easier when there's not another parent around. I mean, overall, it's easier to have another body that helps, but in the moment, it's helpful to have a one-to-one dynamic with my child, for example. So I would highly recommend, and it's not common, right? Most people focus on the negative, talk to their friends about the negative, join support groups that focus on the negative instead of focusing on the positive, new opportunities of being single.
And I like what you said about the narrative. It's so important, the story that we tell afterwards. And that needs to be a good story, even if it is a story of hardship. But there must be a bit of triumph in there as well. Hey,
it has to be, because you just went through something really hard if you just went through a divorce. There is nobody says my divorce was easy, right? It just isn't. It's not designed to be easy. So if you went through that, it means there was something really worth it on the other side for you. And you just have to keep remembering. It's just like doing a fast or a cleanse or eating more healthfully or giving up a drink or smoke. Those are uncomfortable feelings of detox, which is why I call it the love detox. But on the other side, there's something you want so much more than just being comfortable. So it's worth it.
Of course, yeah, we do. So, okay, so now I've figured out what my desires are and I'm aligning it with my thoughts. What do I do then?
Okay, so your desire, let's say, is to find happy, healthy, lasting love. And now we've worked on your thoughts, and most people, again, have a good 7 to 10 thoughts that completely wipe out the possibility of doing that, right? Sure. Thoughts like, there's no one good in my area. I'm too old for this. I don't know how to date. I'll get scammed or tricked or lied to. I don't know if I even want to share my space, etc. Right? So the next step really is to make sure your mind is clean, because that's what I'm running into with my clients. They think they're ready to date, but they have not listened to what's playing up there. Like, they've not been tuned in to what is unfortunately imprinting onto their own subconscious without their consent. So these thoughts, these repetitive negative thoughts, are imprinting on your subconscious. Your subconscious has no choice but to play them out in your behaviors and your results, but we don't know we're doing it. So we have to illuminate the whole world of mindset and what you're actually thinking. I'm excellent at debunking those common beliefs that people have. I've seen too many good examples of it working out for me to ever believe any of your reasons why you can't have it.
Mm.
Truly, the reason you can't have it is because you're not ready yet, or you don't want to, or maybe you're gay and you don't want to admit it, right? So there's some good reasons why you may not be getting what you want, but they're not usually what people are recycling and reciting to themselves. So that's the mind piece. Then the body piece is, okay, here's some actual strategies about how to date.
Mm.
And so I have a very robust system that I've learned from 20 years of, doing this with people, a very robust system for literally how to vet dates, what to do on dates, how to ask the questions on dates, what questions to ask on dates, how many dates to have, when to abort the mission, et cetera, et cetera. So that becomes the practical, heart, mind, body piece.
Mm.
Yeah.
Sounds like a whole science that you've developed, yeah.
Yes. Yes. Thanks to the Handel method. I cannot take full credit, but I have been teaching and practicing it.
Yeah. So let me use myself as an example, or any of something. Let me see some scenarios that I see quite often working with people with divorce. If my objection would be, I'm no longer young and attractive and physically sexy. I've gained some weight. I'm not going to find anybody out there who's going to find me attractive. What would you say to me?
Great. That's a very common one. Thank you. It's on my list. So the first thing I would say is you feeling attractive is very important to you being able to attract someone that you find attractive.
Mm.
So if there is something you can change, right? You can't change your height.
Mm.
Most other things you can change. There's a lot of things you can change. So if there is something that you really in your heart, and I really have to work with people to make sure it's in their heart, not their head, because obviously cultural norms and society and parents and friends are all influencing your opinions on what you think is attractive. I need to get to the heart of what you think is attractive and what feels good to you. Then I would say, yes, do that. Right? If you're in midlife, you should be lifting weights. You should be exercising daily. You should be drinking 8 glasses of water. You should be eating healthfully. You should be doing all that stuff to feel your best and feel that you look your best. But that is really so that you think you're attractive, because what makes you attractive to other people is thinking that you're attractive. I'm sorry, because
that's very well said. It's so true.
Yeah, because everyone has a different type. You could go, oh, I'm too heavy. There's people who love heavy. I'm too thin. People love thin. I'm too tall. I'm too short. I mean, there is no type of look or body that is not attractive to someone. So that is not where we're going to focus. We're going to focus on what you can change to make you feel attractive to yourself. And then you're going to radiate that attractiveness. And then you'll attract people who like that.
Mm.
And you won't attract people who don't like that. And you're not supposed to attract them, because why would you want to attract them?
Yeah.
You want someone who naturally thinks you're cute or good to look at, and vice versa.
You make it sound so simple.
And nobody's too young, right? I mean, just look it up, right? Nobody's too young. And there are literally tens of millions of single people in midlife and older.
Mm.
And pretty much they're all looking for love. So because people don't want to be alone, they want to travel together, they want to settle down together, they want to have someone to talk about their day. Most people who are single are looking for love, and new people are becoming single every day. I mean, I don't know how many times I have to explain this to people. People are dying, people are breaking up. So if someone says to me, but I see the same people on this site and this site and this site, I go, oh my gosh, what are you manifesting? Because not only are there millions of single people who might be happy to move to your town, but new ones are becoming available every day. So there is absolutely no excuse for a scarcity mentality, regardless of how old you are or how you look. How's that?
Well, that's very reassuring, because I know many people say I'm too old for this, or where am I going to meet somebody? And I'm sure at some stage we're going to talk about the dating sites and all those things that are available out there, which is scary.
Yes, scary. People. It is. And you'd be amazed by how much people love to research in a biased manner and find stats to confirm their fears and anxieties. Yes. And I say, cut it out, right? I wanted to have a pain-free natural childbirth. I did not do my research in the mainstream. Okay. Like if you want to do your research in the mainstream complainer victim mentality of the world, go ahead and do that research, right? Talk to everybody about how like, I mean, people send me stats, it's as likely for me to meet someone as it is for, blah, blah, blah. And I go, please stop it. Right. If we want to look at stats to make ourselves crazy and sad and scared, you can find them about anything.
It's easy. Yes.
Stop doing it. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
I love what you said, that I have to feel attractive myself before I can attract the right kind of people. And I'm a firm believer in attracting what I want and what I need, instead of maybe going out and eagerly searching for it. I believe for myself it works to just believe that I will attract whatever it is that I'm meant to have.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting concept. Do you find that is that's difficult for people to do, or is it easy to get to that point with a grasp that? Because I think
that's a very spiritual question.
Yeah, in most of our cultures, or in the Western culture at least, I think we're raised to hope and wait for the right partner. We have a very much better idea of what kind of partner we want, as opposed to what kind of partner we want to be. So it's almost as if we're raised to play this passive role and hope somebody's going to choose us.
Right, literally like Sleeping Beauty. If I just lay there, exactly. I'll be kissed. Right. It's really true. We're up against some poor conditioning. I think you're raising a very interesting point, the juxtaposition of your belief versus the striving or the actions. And, as I said, this is a heart, head, body approach. So there's belief, and then there's also action. And I'll just tell you what I believe to be true in this regard is that your belief is the most powerful thing. And that goes for any area of your life. If you believe you can lose weight, if you believe you can find love, if you believe you can accomplish a result at your work, if you believe we could come back from climate change, or like your belief is really critical and foundational. So if I had to only pick one, I'd pick belief, but I don't have to pick only one. I can have heart, mind, and body going. Right. So I actually, if in my heart of hearts, I believe that action is a placebo, because you can never. So let's say you decide you're going to spend an hour on the dating sites a day and you're going to take action. There's plenty of people who do that and still fail. So action alone definitely does not get you your dream result. Action is sort of like the weakest lever, I would say. However, most people, if they have a desire and a belief, a desire and a belief, a desire, I want to find my soulmate, a belief, I can find my soulmate, are then aided by an action plan, right? They are then facilitated by an action plan, because that action plan recycles back to refers back to the belief. So you wouldn't be acting if you didn't believe. And since you're acting, you believe more. So for example, if I eat healthy and I exercise, I'm going to be more likely to believe I can lose weight. I could still do it just on belief and really just focus on belief. But if I take the action as well, I am reinforced. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm reinforced in my belief. And the stronger the belief is, the more quickly the result comes. So the belief is important. The action is also important, but not because one particular action ensures the result. Because we don't know. It's just like when you send out an e-blast, or, you send out a summit or something, you don't know what's going to hit who, and who, you might reach someone because someone forwarded it, and then someone forwarded it. You can't possibly control what your actions produce, but you do want to keep taking actions because it helps you believe you're going to get back the result that you desire.
It seems like we need all of those things to work together.
It's optimal. It's optimal. It's not impossible without it, but it's really optimal to be working all the angles.
Yeah. Well, if I wanted to lose weight and I don't exercise and I don't mind what I eat, I'm not going to get very far.
Well, again, the more you believe you can, the more likely you would be to research how, and the more likely you would be to do something different, even if it's not conscious.
Yes. So Laurie, you mentioned earlier that you have to be dateable, and I love that term. So I need to do some work and get everything aligned to know what I want and what I need and what my desires are.
Yes.
And it all boils down to this being ready to put myself out there and date. What makes me dateable?
I mean, I'm going to say all those things on my list, sort of checking them off and being in alignment with that list. So we already covered, you think you're attractive, you like yourself, your life is in a good place, so you would imagine you deserve somebody whose life is in a good place. You've detoxed your divorce, you've come to understand and accept what you've learned. That learning is integrated in, so you're not going to make the same mistake. You have a community around you that's going to support you in not making the same mistake. And then you are clear on what you want, kind of what you said. You have a clear strategy, steps you're going to take, things you're going to do and not do, requirements from what you've learned about how you're going to do it in the future. And then the last thing I would put in there to as a summary category for being dateable is you are good at communicating. A lot of relationships break down because you're not good at communicating. So let's learn from that. I teach an 8-step strategy for communicating any difficult topic. I want people to be great listeners, and I want people to be great complainers. I don't want you complaining just to dump on someone and feel better. I want you to be able to say what you want and need in a way that can be heard. So I teach you the 8-step process for that. And that makes you incredibly more dateable, because it means you're not gonna step over things. It means you're not gonna shy away from whatever they want to talk about. And it means you're gonna trust yourself to be a great partner because you have those tools. And when you trust yourself to be a great partner, your confidence level goes way up in dating.
Yes. And talking about the mistakes, I see so often people repeat the mistakes they make in their relationships. And then the second relationship, especially second marriages, have a very low success rate because people don't do this work to find out and figure out, firstly, themselves, and to learn from their mistakes so they don't repeat them. What is your experience with that?
If you don't do the work, you will repeat. That's how, that's the magic. That's the spiritual quandary, is that you will keep getting that opportunity. I think that the powers that be want you to learn the lessons, and they will keep kicking your ass until you do. So the sooner I don't care if you're 90, the sooner you go, oh, I don't need to do that again. The sooner you move on to new problems, right? Best case scenario, you move on to the problem of, how do I sustain this wonderful thing? Oh, good communication. Expanding my sexuality. There's that stage, which is the next stage. You're never going to stop learning. But there really is, to me, it's a beautiful piece of news that there is a curriculum to work through. And if you do it, if you do the work, you're free to have new and different and better problems. And by the way, so are your kids, right? All the work you do trickles down to them. So it's extra good news. Yeah.
And we're modeling better behavior to our children. So I'm always in support of that. The more we
learn, they are watching. They are watching and absorbing.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty of the scary stuff. What's your take on these dating sites and the do's and don'ts of that? Because that, I think, I know many people who've met their soulmates on dating sites and they're ecstatically happy. And I know many people who've had really horrifying experiences with people that they've met.
I literally just published a new bonus for my course that I offer called, let me tell you what I called it. I believe it was the 12 must follow safety tips for early dating. And I think you're kind of getting at that. I mean, obviously there's the mindset, right? Which is, you do need to believe you can use the sites effectively. You do need to believe you're going to find love. You do need to believe that most people are safe and ethical. You know, those are beliefs you want to have. But you also want to keep your eyes wide open, right? Because I sort of support a very positive mindset, obviously, but you do need to keep your eyes open. And if it smells fishy, it's probably fishy. And
Yeah.
because there are, again, I really don't want to, you know, I'm sort of against filling your mind with negative beliefs. So I don't want to scare anyone who isn't scared, because it's a very small percentage. It's like wear your seatbelt in the car. It's like
Yes.
that, right? Like everyone agrees, wear your seatbelt in the car, but it's not like we think we're going to get into a car accident. So
Mm.
you're not going to get in, you're not going to be scammed. You're not going to be betrayed if you date by my policies, and you should wear your seatbelt. And wearing your seatbelt means if a person won't get on a video chat with you, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
If a person wants your personal information and doesn't understand why you don't want to give it, that's a red flag. If they ask for money, if they ask for an investment, that's a red flag, right? So there are, a person who is serious, likes you, wants to fall in love with you, will 100% understand why you want to meet in public, why you don't want to have a bunch of drinks, why you want to ask a bunch of questions and really get to know each other before you ever go anywhere not in public, why you want to keep certain information private until you know them, why you want to go get STD tested together. So a respectful person who really likes you will think all of that makes so much sense and will want to protect you also. So those are kind of off the top of my head, the best tips for when you get back into it. Wear your seatbelt, please.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm thinking of lots of things you need to wear when you're going on these dating excursions. So tell me, yeah, there's actually a checklist you mentioned that one can use. What about people who are out there going dating now? If you're on a first date with someone that you're meeting for the first time, what advice would you give? Or do you have a checklist for that too, or questions to ask?
Yes. So many good do's and don'ts. So plan your first date to be a coffee, a smoothie, a green juice, a tea, maybe an alcoholic beverage, but I wouldn't recommend it because you really want to stay present and clear and get to know the person as they are. You can extend it to a dinner or a walk if it's going well. If it's not going well, you want to abort the mission as soon as possible. You've only invested a half an hour. That's a do. Okay, do come prepared with questions based on your criteria of what you're looking for. Rehearse those questions and rehearse your own answers to those questions, because hopefully they will say, and you will say the answers back. Coming up with questions is a whole other podcast, right? That deserves its whole own podcast, but there are questions you need to ask yourself. There are questions you need to ask the other person about your criteria. And they're just generically awesome, fun questions that are help you to get to know a person better. Each person in my course comes up with their own personalized list, pulling from a lot of suggestions and recommendations, and what we've learned works. So do come prepared with those questions. Do have a video chat first to make sure the person looks like, seems like there's some validity, there's some effort. Don't bother getting dressed and going out. If, again, I'm trying to save my daters fatigue and disappointment. So please vet first before you go. Make sure none of your deal breakers are if there's a deal breaker, like they smoke or they have kids at home or they're allergic to dogs, or if there's some off the bat deal breaker, you don't need to have a first date. So you handle that in your video chat. And then again, limit your drinking. If not, don't drink. No affection unless you're interested. So if you're interested, in other words, you're intrigued, you want to know more, it's a compatible match, practically speaking, and you're attracted, you could make out at most. You're not going back to someone's house. I think this is obvious, but but maybe not. You're not going back to anyone's house according to my strategy until you've had 3 dates and each of you matches each other's criteria at an 8 or above in your head category, practical, your heart category, how it feels, and your hoo-ha category, are you turned on? And even then, that's very soon. There are other requirements for actually going back to the house, but your job on that first 3 dates is to find out everything you can about each other's criteria and how you match or don't match that criteria. So don't be physical if you're not attracted or want a second date. Don't go home with them. Don't drink or overdrink. Don't monopolize the conversation. Make sure there's an equal give and take. And don't just let it go wherever. And don't go somewhere noisy. I mean, again, I think that's obvious, but you need a quiet cafe or a walk or not a loud, crowded bar, not a concert, not a movie. Your job is getting to know that person. That's your job.
Okay, well, that makes sense. You make it sound so simple. It's weird to think that I must go prepared with a list and all of that stuff, but I think that's the best way to do it. It's safe.
Well, it reduces your anxiety. It reduces anxiety tremendously, and it increases effectiveness. So you can wing it. Most people, when they come to me, they've been winging it. Right? They know what that's like. So you can wing it. But if you're serious and you are ready to find your person and you don't want to be disappointed again and again, and you don't want to waste time, then there are really good strategies. And the reason I make it sound so simple is because I've literally been studying it and guinea pigging it on people for 20 years. So that is the advantage of being in the lab and getting those results. It is simple to me, but it is not simple to most people because they haven't been doing it or studying it or in a lab or even really objectively observing their friends, right? If they've been observing, it's been very subjective. So that is where I come in handy.
And it brings me back to the way we are raised again, because in most cultures, we're not raised to even think about qualities or characteristics and criteria that we want. I think we're mostly raised to see if there's a chemistry, if there's some attraction.
That's one way. That's one group of humans. The ones that maybe, depending on their parents' role modeling, if you grew up on Disney or you grew up on rom-coms, you might really center the hoo-ha, right? Center the turn on. But there's some people who've been really hurt or saw their mom or dad get really hurt, and they really center head. They go, is this practical or not? And they don't, and they sell out on the attraction, or they really go for the heart. They just fall in love and they absolutely ignore the head. So they end up with someone who doesn't want the same thing they want.
Yes.
Also a pitfall and a disaster. So there is no one type of selling out or blindness, you could call it. It's sort of equal across humans, the way that we sell out on one or two of those H's.
And either way, if we sell out on any of them, we're not being true to ourselves. I think we're not going to get what we really want or need, for that matter. So, Laurie, if I am a divorced person and I've got young children and I want to get out into the dating world, I've now sorted out my narrative. I'm happy with my desires and who I am and what I want. How do I do this with children?
Yeah, it's a great question. I answer that a lot because that's on the list. That's also on the list of obstacles. So it's two-headed, right? On the one hand, I think you have to acknowledge there is a competition between your children and the new love. There's a competition for your attention, your affection, your loyalty, and even your inheritance, right? If I'm going to be utterly blunt, right? Like the money you leave behind in the long run. So many family quarrels and rifts are centered around the fact that there's a competition between the new love and the children. So number one, I want you to acknowledge that and go in eyes wide open. On the other hand, most children, if you raise them in any way decently, want you to be happy. They want you to be happy. They even need you to be happy in order to have that role model, in order to have that belief that they can be happy. So subconsciously, they are certainly rooting for and cheering for you finding a love that is healthy and lasts. And so you do owe it to them not to give up on it, and certainly not to blame them for why you gave up on it, which many people do. I'm not doing it because I need to tend to this. Now, if you really do need to tend to it, if your kid is 2 years old, or, or really struggling, or isn't over the divorce, or if there's some reason you really do need to center your child for this moment, please do. Right? You're not going to attract the right person when you're not available. So please do. But if your kid is healthy and well and launched and has support around them and is well functioning and is emotionally stable, that kid's going to want you to find love. So please do not blame them just because you're a chicken and you don't want to put on mascara or whatever, right? Shave, so it's that would be, I guess that's my general first bit of coaching about dating with children.
And I'm so glad you mentioned the fact that children actually want their parents to be happy and loved and have someone as well. I don't think in any healthy situation that would not be the case. So it's a very important thing for parents to realize, especially single parents or those who are the primary caregivers. It's so easy to be overwhelmed by the day-to-day tasks and the responsibilities and the duties. And then, of course, a lack of energy often. And if you have small children, that sleep deprivation and all of that, those can all become easy excuses to not do something for ourselves, right?
100%. That was my excuse to tank my own marriage. So, that excuse works in every stage of relationship if you want an excuse, but it's not true.
There's always one to be found, eh?
Hey, yes, we're very good at that as humans.
And the $1 million question I want to ask you is, what is your opinion about introducing your children to somebody that you're dating? When do you do that? When do you not do that? Because there are varied opinions about that. And I have a very...
I can't wait to hear yours. I'm very conservative. Because again, I watch people get in and out of relationships post-divorce, and I don't think a child needs to be on that emotional roller coaster with you, especially if they're young, right? I draw the line around 14. If they're 14 and older, they have a lot more of their own life. They're more independent of you. They can have opinions. They can speak their opinions clearly. They can, they're usually a little less susceptible to your drama. But under 14, and certainly the younger you go, the kid is really susceptible to going on that emotional roller coaster ride with you, and extremely susceptible to getting attached to someone you bring in. And I do not recommend you let your child get attached to someone you bring in unless you are really, really sure that that person is going to be around for a long time, if not forever. So I'm very conservative for kids under 14. I say wait a long time. It's not, you don't have to lie about dating, but you're not bringing that person into their life until you are sure. A couple things. They think your kids are a value add. You think they will be a value add to your kid's life. And you think it's going to last. Those are the conditions on which I would bring the two together. And then when you bring the two together, neutral territory, again, just like a first date, a drink, a smoothie, a walk, nothing high pressure. And please do not demand that your child like or approve the person. That child, just like you, has to have enough dates to develop an honest trust, to get to know, to ask questions and all that. So please don't put that pressure onto your child to approve your situation. That's not the same as don't be rude. You can ask your child to be polite and civilized, but your child does not owe you approval without actually getting to know the person. And I don't think that's fair to do to a child. So those are some of my hot tips. Do you agree? Where are you on the topic?
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you, except I will add that it's complex, and we have to be careful that children don't attach to the adults who come and go, because it can traumatize them. But at the same time, I also see it as an opportunity to teach our children the processes of making new friends and meeting people and dating and selecting who would be the best partners for us. So there's an opportunity for them to learn from us as we model the behavior. But yes, I agree with you. If we're going in an emotional roller coaster because relationships last and we've maybe fall in love and then it doesn't work out, we don't want our children to go along with that. And they also, personalities differ. Some children are very susceptible to the adults' emotions. that are close to them, and some are not. And I agree with you, 14 is a good age where they start having their own circle of friends and activities and things that they're overly involved with, so they don't notice so much.
Yeah, and they don't need to attach to another parent figure nearly as much as a young child would, right? A young child's just more susceptible and more likely. And it depends on your child. You know your child better than I do, but I think those are good generalities. And I like your counterpoint that they, just like they have to get over losing their first grade teacher when they go to second grade and third grade and fourth grade, they do have to learn that seasons change and people change, and that's okay. And you can take what you get from each experience. But if your child's not hip to that, you have some potential harm to look out for.
It's also hard for the parents if you've maybe dated for 6 months or so and you've become quite attached to each other.
Right.
And then you introduce your kids and your kids don't like this person. You have to break up because of the children. That's going to be tough.
Well, I wouldn't break up with the children too fast. I mean, I wouldn't break up for the children too fast, right? I mean, I would listen, right? Your children actually know you better than someone you met 6 months ago. So if your children don't like the person, I would listen very closely as to why.
Yes.
Now, I know my child can be a complete and total brat and just try to mess with me, and it has nothing to do with any real problem.
Yeah.
So you need to know your child well enough to know, are they jealous? Are they feeling competitive? Are they feeling replaced? Are they throwing a tantrum? Or do they see something I don't see because they love me? It's and unfortunately, there are some examples where a person can be great to their partner, but not great to their partner's kid. And that's not cool. I wouldn't do that. Yeah. I wouldn't do that if I were you. I wouldn't set that up for your kid if I were you, because you will feel that guilt and you'll feel it. That crime doesn't go unpunished.
Yeah, and some people are just not as good with kids. And then if both parties have children and they've got to blend all of that together, it's a whole new set of challenges that come with that.
Yes. So true.
So I wanted to ask you on the dating topic, dating and love, give us some things to look out for. Let's say we've been dating for a year or two, things are going great, we believe this is going to last. How do we decide whether to move in together or when to move in together?
Ooh, good question. I'm working with a couple right now, and it's different for every couple, obviously. So I'll just introduce this topic that I do with my clients, which is called liability compatibility. So assuming you've been together for 1 or 2 years, you now know what doesn't work about the other. So in this example that I'm giving, they don't really want to live in the same location. They each have, they live about 2 hours apart, and they each have things they like about where they live versus where the other one lives, for example. They have very different styles of how they approach work, and there's some judgmentalness about that. They both are avoidant, so they can sometimes avoid difficult conversations and not have them. Let me think. I really give the number 7, because I think if you can't come up with 7, you're probably in denial. But if it's more than 7, you probably shouldn't be with the person. But there are certain, there are certain liabilities. My husband and I both came into our relationship arrogant and kind of like, what's the opposite of, I can't think of the right word, but not caring how we smell. Let's put it that way. Really not caring too much about grooming or, smells, honestly, not caring about smells or clothes or kind of like keeping up with trends. So we both came in with those seeming liabilities, but because we both had them, they canceled each other out.
Okay.
So a year or two in, hopefully, each other's liabilities, right? You're not faking it anymore. You're not putting on your best show. When they're cranky, when they're rude, what their temper's like, what their kids' issues are, what their health issues are, all of it. All of that really needs to be sorted through and negotiated. When I'm helping a couple decide if they want to stay together forever or whether they want to move in together, all of that needs to get really parsed out. And I have a whole process for that too, as you could imagine, where we just take I call it elephants in the room, or laundry list items or shit list items. And we just one by one have each person in the couple practice hearing the other person's perspective.
Mhm.
And so that's an important communication tool, obviously. So you hear the other person's perspective, and then you come up with literally promises and plans for how you're going to deal with it. Literally, like what's the process by which we're going to decide where to live? What's the process by which we're going to take care of the person who gave up their place? What's the process by which we're going to order the food and put the food away and cook the food and clean up the food, right? Like, and so every area of life gets addressed in the negotiations, and every role. If you're going to share a household, there are about 150 things that go into running a household. Who's going to be in charge of what?
Mm.
So those are two really long lists, right? The laundry list of ways in which your traits interact, ways in which your liabilities interact, hurts you may have experienced, and then the list of literally what it takes, the practical list of what it takes to run the household. And really,
Awesome.
most people don't do that. And then they find out once they live together what's going to break down and cause trouble. I try to do that all in advance with my couples.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I wish everybody would do this, because most people blend families and then they end up 6 months down the line, nobody's coping at all, and it's disastrous. And
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
It's great that you have so many systems and lists and things in place, because it simplifies things. It makes it so easy to work through it, sort it out, and then you know exactly where you're going.
Yeah, I'm really good news for a nerd. Like for somebody who just wants to wing it, I'm not that helpful. But for someone who goes, I want to be methodical, I want to be systematic, I want to leave no stone unturned, I want to prepare, I want to be smart about this, I want to avoid mistakes. My coaching is really very effective for those people.
Now, what do you do if two people are different? The one wants to be methodical and the other person says, I don't want to do this, I just want to see how it goes.
There has to be some convergence, right? So if everyone's happy, then that's fine. But if they're not, if one person is not, one or both are not happy, there has to be some convergence. But no two couples are the same, right? I've got couples who love my spreadsheets, and then I have couples who get the point, but then make it their own. But if you don't want to be accountable, you're not going to get the result that you want. So accountability is really important, whether it's accountable to a coach, a therapist, your partner, a buddy, right? There's many ways to be accountable, but if you don't want to be accountable, for me, that's a deal breaker in a relationship. So if you're a person who wants to better the relationship and you want to be accountable, but your partner does not want to be accountable in any way, that can definitely be an irreconcilable difference.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, this has been most interesting and very helpful, Laurie. Thank you very much. I'd love to get hold of some of those articles of yours and share that information. So I'll get that from you. But yeah, as a conclusion, what is the best tip that you can give people who are divorced and keen to start dating?
Go to my website, lauriegerber.com, and just poke around, because there's something for everybody, all the way from free to very expensive. And each offering will be appropriate for where you are. So if you just want to assess, am I ready to date? There's a free quiz. If you want to dive into the secrets of healthy, lasting love, there's a webinar. If you want to, hire a coach, there's a consultation. So there's something for everybody in there, and tons of free content, obviously, if you just want to keep studying and learning more of what I'm offering.
Wonderful. It sounds great. Sure. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. I hope we'll do some more of that soon.
Great.